Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rob Shmuel. Rosh be with you. Rob Shmuel ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen S. Epstein. Steve for Samuel. Um, how y'all doing? I've been getting asked the question, how was Mother's Day? Did we enjoy Mother's Day? Did we do something good for Mother's Day? Um, every woman is a mother. Let's face it. I almost think maybe they should make it Women's Day because, what about women that don't have kids or, they're maybe an aunt or something like that or whatever, or a cousin, and they're in the role of a mother, they're a mother figure. I think we should expand it to that. Now, Judaism, and we've studied this before, especially in the Talmud and in the Siddurim in our prayers. Probably the relationship of woman in Judaism is very misunderstood. A lot of it stems from that infamous prayer in the morning blessings. If you're a traditional Jew, you know the blessing. Thank you, God, for not having made me a woman. Now, the conservative and the reform movement have changed that. They've taken that prayer out. And by the way, if you're a woman, you say something else. Thank you for making me according to your will. All right. So that's what woman would say for that prayer in the traditional Judaism. Now, the more progressive movements, the conservative and the reform, have changed that, and they say everybody says, "Thank you for having made us or me in your likeness." I always like to use plural when I'm doing these. So people changed it. The conservative movement, the reform movement changed that because they felt it was offensive to women because you're saying, well, I'm glad I'm not a chick, Um, and it's really been misunderstood. In fact, the role of woman in Judaism has been misunderstood. The idea that women can't come up to the bima, women cannot put on talitot or heaven forbid for tefillin, get bat mitzvah, and all of that. Part of it stems from the fact that every month, yes, women have an open wound and they're not supposed to come up to the bima. Okay, fine. Whether you want to be able to, with our modern times, be able to, take care of that, to cover it, like you would put a Band-Aid on an open wound, then would a man be prohibited from coming up to the bima? But some people have even gone so far as to claim that women are a second-class citizen. Actually, the truth is, and I'm going to say it's the truth, I'm going to go out right on a limb and make this bold statement: women are in a higher spiritual plane than men. Yes, they are. That is why women are excused from the positive time-based commandments like praying. Number one, they don't need to because they're more spiritually evolved. Number two, they're too busy taking care of the house, which is more of a responsibility than going out and plowing the fields or taking care of the cattle or whatever else men do to make a living. Women don't go to bars and get into fights. Women don't assault men the way men assault women. That's the statistics bear that out. Yes, I know there are exceptions. But if you look at the statistics, if you look at society, that's basically how it is. Let me take a bold step here. The idea of women covering up their bodies. Okay, this is because men have all this desire, all this lust, and sometimes we have a tough time dealing with it. Okay, women don't. They don't have those urges the way men do. They're more evolved. They give birth. They create life the way God creates life. So that's it. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Especially because this week's Torah portion, Behar Bechukotai, it is a double portion, but I work to make my talks here, my drashes, if you will, which is an investigation, or my Devar Torah, about whatever triennial portion we're looking at. Now, the second of the double portion, Bechukotai, has something in it called the Tochacha. It's warning, stern warning. It is not in this year's reading because in the third triennial cycle, we are typically reading the back third of a portion. Now, the Tochacha, goes on for chapter 26. It's a long chapter. It goes on for about 50 verses or so. And it starts out by saying, if you do what you're supposed to do, um, and observe the commandments, especially Shabbat, kashrut, all that, then the rains will come in their proper time. You'll get the early rains, which will nourish, really not drown, but really nourish the ground. Then the late rains, where you got a drizzle, so it doesn't wash out the crops. You'll be successful in battle. People will not want to fight you because you'll be strong, et cetera, et cetera. Says that for about, I don't know, maybe, 7 verses, maybe 6. Then it goes on for 40 verses or so, 34 verses, I think. And it says, but if you don't, and it's successive warnings that get worse and worse because we people are kind of stupid. Yes, we are. That's why we have laws and regulations. It has to be, and there's consequences to not doing what's right that get progressive if you abandon God, abandon the covenant. So that is the thrust of Bechukotai. Now, if this were a year, now in the Parsha Jethro, where we have the Ten Commandments, that's at the back of the reading as well, at the back of the Parsha. So if you're doing the first triennial cycle, which is next year, if you were to stick to the format, you would not be reading the Ten Commandments. So a lot of schedules say read the whole Parsha. Read the whole Parsha, the whole portion, so that you can include the Ten Commandments. I'm kind of thinking that maybe we should do with this one too, even though it is very long and it adds the time. But, hey, we're Jews. We need to study Torah. It's not about being convenient. That's what the Tochacha is all about. You may not like some of the things you have to do, but it's going to keep you honest and it's going to keep you straight up. That's the whole point. But having said that, let's move on to what is covered in this year's triennial portion, in this week's Parsha, that we'll be reading, which is about making vows based on a person's worth. Now, that worth is really their productivity. So for a man, if you make a vow, all right, I'm almost 7, I'm old, all right, let's say that. And I'm not theoretically in the prime of life. So the value of me making a vow to, let's say, the temple or some synagogue or whatever, is not going to be as much, or I'm not as valuable as somebody who's in their prime, which is somebody who's from ages 20 to 50. I just, as much as I like to think I am, as much as I work out and lift weights, I do have some aches and pains. I do have a muscle tear here and there. And, it's easier for me to get injured. So I can't do the work that, say, a 35-year-old can do. It's just, unfortunately, it's a fact of life. So I'm not as worth as much. Same thing with a man versus a woman. As I just said, women are very valuable in society. They have this upstanding moral character in general. But they don't do the physical labor that men do. So men are worth more. So basically what it's saying is if you want to give to the temple with a capital T, and you want to decide how much to give, your worth, how much shekels, whatever you give, is based on your value as a person. So the categories is men 20 to 50, women 20 to 50, childbearing age, taking care of a house. Then you've got children from 5 to 20, boys and girls, who are coming up, who are able to help a little bit, but still less. Then you've got babies 0 to 5, both gender categories. Then you got old people over 50, who are starting to get a little bit slower. Even the Levites and the Kohanim, they don't serve the temple after the age of 50. They're passing their wisdom. And this is another beautiful thing about Judaism, even though they don't have maybe the stamina or the youthfulness or the ability, to carry those, big chunks of bull, up the ramp and the altar, but they still have that wisdom from having served most of their life and learned, right? So they have that wisdom. So notice, let me make the connection here, because, my big thing is the whole flow of Torah. I'm bending my head down so you can see my yarmulke. just making sure. So let's make the connection. We have the stern warning about leaving the covenant and not up complying or not dealing with the covenant. I hate the word obey, not fulfilling the commandments. Okay. And then right after that, and this is where the book of Leviticus ends, we have donating whatever your worth is as a productive person to the temple. Notice that whenever we get admonitions or warnings, or whenever something crazy happens, like somebody's out there collecting wood when they shouldn't, or fighting, or using God's name, it's typically followed by some path to redemption. You will find this in the Torah often. So here's one way to give to the temple. Do a mitzvah, the good mitzvah, because the word mitzvah means commandment. That's it, and we use it in the vernacular to say it's a good deed. Okay. But we have a way of redemption, of giving something to the temple based on your worth. You feel good. You feel like you want to continue to fulfill the commandments, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Running out of time. Thank you very much for listening, and Shabbat Shalom early, and we will see you in temple.